Competition is a byproduct of the country's demography. Competition is temporary, collaboration is permanent.
Right.
Because you may get your foot inside the door with competition, but to survive inside that room, you need collaboration. And if you look at it, if you don't get your foot inside the door, but still you're outside, you need collaboration to survive. So either way, you
Right.
need collaboration to survive. Teacher, speaker, leader, taking 100% responsibility for your people is the beginning of anything. So my values begins with taking 100% responsibility for everyone. And I want to say why. The reason why is it's very easy to pass the blame. It's very easy to say, I have done my part, now it is up to you. But let me always tell you this. I have always believed in this. The job is not done until it is over. The job is not done until it is over. When I say over, it is not you finishing your part, it is the whole process completing. Creativity is very important. And a few tips which I can tell you what I follow in creativity is try to have diversity. When I say diversity, you don't look at it in a silo. So if I'm studying mathematics, I will only study maths, and I won't focus on other things. No, you try to bring in another aspect, maybe watch a series or try to bring in some kind of design element and show maths there, or try to talk about a poem or a song.
Moving on to teaching in general, not just about the virtual meetings. In general, uh, what the new education policy also aims at is to make teachers more equipped, to make them more capable, so that they could deliver more value to the students. But as you rightly said in the initial part, that values and principles are the core. And I also started believing in it when I read the book called Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Then you also see the same things in like Bhagavad Gita, or where it is called Swadharma, or different things, the same philosophy in different things. It's basically boils down to the core values, to the core principle. So Dr. Chandra, as a teacher, what principles do you abide by as a teacher?
Okay, so as a teacher, well, I think it is 100% responsibility. So I need to take responsibility for my learners, for my students, for my audience. And I think this philosophy or this value system is pretty much valid even as a speaker and as a leader. Teacher, speaker, leader, taking 100% responsibility for your people is the beginning of anything. So my values begins with taking 100% responsibility for everyone. And I want to say why. The reason why is it's very easy to pass the blame. It's very easy to say, I have done my part, now it is up to you. But let me always tell you this. I have always believed in this. The job is not done until it is over. The job is not done until it is over. When I say over, it is not you finishing your part, it is the whole process completing. It is the whole process completing. So that is why I say 100% responsibility becomes very, very important.
Right. So this concept of core values and principles, I think it is integrated into the schooling system by, like, many of the schools abide by them. But there is a different part in education today in India, or say abroad also. These are the concept of tuitions or for-profit educations. So, uh, so tuitions and coaching institutes. So, do you think that there is a difference of values on which these two institutions operate by? Because according to me, one of them approaches it as, developing the student, but the other is more concerned just about the exams, just about the marks and the business part. So there may be exceptions, but it is what I perceive. So what do you think about?
Well, I think it is a very complex system, not as simple as what you are looking at it from one dimension. I don multiple hats as a teacher, also as an edupreneur. Now, if you look at that point of view, and I have to put on my hat of an edupreneur, there is nothing wrong with respect to making a profit. I'm using this word very consciously. There is nothing wrong with respect to making a profit, because the very essence of business is you deliver something of value and then you charge in return for it, and that whatever charge you are making adds to your profit, and that profit is what motivates you to do more work, right? So that's the simple system. Now, there is nothing wrong in for profit education, in my personal opinion, and I've always been vocal about it and I believe in it. The problem here is, if I don't do my job properly and I expect somebody else to do the job, and that person is charging again for doing my job, basically what is happening? You are cheating the customer. Now, take your example. You said the coaching institute approaches with building students for exams, and the schools who are supposed to be doing that, is one of their deliverables, are not doing it, but they're doing everything else which is of no use because the final result is not coming the way they want. So what is happening for a student, a parent? The parent has to enroll the child into a school because that's the system in India or the country. And then because the child wants to or has to go further and the school is not assuring me of that result, the parent is forced to shell out money for a coaching center. Now, one person predating on somebody's pocket is something which I don't approve of. For profit does not mean you hold somebody for ransom. For profit is you give your value and you charge your premium. See, there are n number of people today in the market. Let's take an example of a car. You have a car which is available at 1 plus lakh, and you have a car which is available more than a crore. It's up to you. You want to buy a car which is 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs, go for it. You want to buy a BMW or a better car, a Bugatti or something which is costing you more than 1 crore, go for it. Nobody's going to stop you. But just imagine if a car manufacturer will come and say, take this car, but the car comes without tires. For tires, you pay me another 10 lakhs. Okay, for steering, another 10 lakhs. Okay, then for the engine to actually start, another 10 lakhs. So basically, he's leeching on you. That is not right. That is not a business at all.
Right.
So
So,
that
yeah.
was a brilliant answer according to me. So that just brings me to another type of businesses or industry. There is industries like Khan Academy or Byju's or an academy. So you as a person related to a school or management in the school, uh, do you see them as your competition, or do you see these as 1 plus 1 greater than 2 for the child? So as you mentioned that if the school is not doing its job, that is why they take tuitions. But these institutions, some of them have been started with the motive to make education available where schools are not there. So but we also have been seeing that a lot of students have subscribed to them as well in metros. So they go there to learn more, to sometimes clarify their doubt. So that is the question: whether do you see them as a competition or a system where it is 1 plus 1 greater than 2?
And not just Khan Academy and these Byju's and these classes, but free services like YouTube. Because many a times when I have a doubt these days, I first go to YouTube rather than going to Google, and more often than not, I find an answer. And this has been the system that I've seen with students of engineering, students of finance, and any most of the other students. So, do you feel these are a competition, or these are just a support system that the schools have?
So, well, I think first of all, let me make this point very clear. Khan Academy cannot be taken in the same breath as Byju's or an academy. The reason is from the day one, Khan Academy has been very particular and very vocal about not for profit. So they are offering all those courses or e-learning resources for people across the globe free of cost. So that's being said. Now come to the question. Now the question about, are Byju's, Unacademy or Vedantu, are they competitors to the schools or are they adding to the ecosystem? Well, I think the answer is both no and yes. I want to start with no. There are no competitors to schools because you look at the education system, your Byju's certificate is not going to get you an admission in a college. Your Byju's certificate is not going to get you enrollment into a university, right? Maybe in future that might happen, but as of now, as we speak, that is not the truth. So they are not competition because schools have much more in their power than what Byju's has. A valid school leaving certificate can get you a passport. Byju's degree cannot give you a passport. I'm just giving you a context. Now, with saying that, what Byju's has surely done is Byju's has made the fish tank a shark tank. You must have heard of that story. In places where people go for freshwater fishing, okay, especially in places like Korea, South Korea, and China and Japan. So they used to do this. They used to get fishes and put them into the big tanks on the ship and bring them back to the shore. But people, customers there, they were not happy with these fishes because by the time they catch the fish and bring them to the shore, it used to take 2 to 3 days. People were interested in eating fresh fish. Now what they did is, okay, they moved the fish from the sweet water tank to salt water tank. They said those huge cans, they put salt water so that the fish gets the same water which they get in the sea, and they are alive, and they bring to the shore, they cut them open, and then they serve to the customers. Even this was not very happy because customers were not liking it. Why? Because the fish, once they got into the tank, relaxed and they were slumber sleepy, and people don't like to eat relaxed fish because the blood circulation will not give the taste. What they did is they introduced small sharks into those big fish tanks on the ship. Why? Because the fish inside the tank started getting jittery. They may be eaten anytime because they have a shark around. So what? They were very active for 2 days. None of the fish were relaxing, and they brought it here and they served those. They might have lost a few fishes in the journey because the shark would have eaten them, but still the rest of them were as fresh as what people can eat in the center of the ocean. What Byju's has done that is the exact same thing. Byju is the shark which is being introduced thanks to COVID and otherwise also thanks to venture capitalists into the education ecosystem. Now, with this, what is happening? Schools are not about to relax. Private schools cannot relax. Private schools will say, if I don't teach, my student will go to Byju's. Right? The only saving grace is the child has to still appear for exam through the school. But that might change. That might change. That is not a writing on the wall. Right? So, what Byju's has done is creating the system or converting the system into a more agile environment. Right? Having said that, there is no way this situation is going to continue because COVID has given the confidence to every school that they can go online. Earlier, the principals and the managements and the teachers were thinking, yeah, we want to become a Byju, we want to become a Vedantu, we want to teach online, but we don't know how to do. It's too technical. Right? Today, when they have done it, they're like, oh, this is it, right? It takes only this much. And then today people have started sharing slides on Zoom, not just slides, they're sharing whiteboards on Zoom, and they're connecting it to their mobile phones, and they're drawing on their mobile phone, and children are seeing it. This is all not schools teaching them, teachers are doing it on their own. So post COVID, I see a different landscape developing in the school education system, and I'm sure even Byju's or Unacademies are even aware of this fact that this is going to be a very, very dangerous and a difficult time, not what it was before to 2020.
Okay, so that was the story. Actually, was quite interesting. That put everything into perspective for me. What is really happening? Uh, so speaking of competition and collaboration, now we come to we take the same concept, and I want your opinion on whether this like whether this is true for students, because in this system, for the boards exams, or we have so many exams, it is competition based. For that matter, we have exams like UPSC, IIT, JEE, so these are competition based. But as we know, like in management, or where there is a there is a management education, they teach that collaboration is equally important. So how do you instill collaboration in students in schools?
See, there are two different things for this, Atharva. Number one is competition is a byproduct of the country's demography. Today, if you see in India, our competition is so neck to neck, so cutthroat, is only because there are so many people available for so little opportunities, right? So that's a different question altogether. Why are we not able to create more and more opportunities to the size and scale of this nation? Now that's a question which needs different analysis and different answers. I won't get into that, and I'm sure you don't want me to dwell into that as of now. But competition is temporary, collaboration is permanent,
Right.
because you may get your foot inside the door with competition, but to survive inside that room, you need collaboration. And if you look at it, if you don't get your foot inside the door, but still you're outside, you need collaboration to survive. So either way, you
Right.
need collaboration to survive. Let me give you an example. Now, there are people who did not get into what they wanted. Classic example is Dr. Abdul Kalam. He wanted to get into defense. He tried his best, one time, two times, three times, attempting interviews after interviews, all the way from that small little village town or the sleeping town from Tamil Nadu, Rameswaram, to Jammu Kashmir, to Delhi. He went and attended. He did not get through. Now that was competition. That was competition. He was not able to compete with others, and he was not able to make it. But does it mean he was not good enough? He was not good enough for that place, but he was better in more than one aspect for the larger aspect of life, and that happened through collaboration. Even when he was a scientist in DRDO, he collaborated with defense people. He did not say, "Oh, you did not select me that time, so I am not going to collaborate with you." Or when he
Right.
became the president, the first citizen of this nation, as the commander in chief of all the defense forces, he never said, "Oh, you people never selected me when I appeared, so I will not come back to any of your passing day parades or your investiture ceremonies, or I don't even respect you people." No, collaboration
Right.
is permanent. Competition is temporary. You may win it or lose it, but that's a product of your country's demography. That's not the product of the human behavior or human culture.
Right. So I totally agree on that point, that collaboration is very much important. But I was asking more from a student's perspective, because due to such system, the mindset of students have become more of competitive rather than collaborative. So what are the activities that should be planned, or what are some tips that teachers should keep in mind to instill this collaborative mindset in students? That
I
is
think,
what I was trying
the
to.
first thing what teachers and parents should do is stop talking about comparisons.
Hmm.
Okay, the problem is, let us go to the root cause. Why is competitive spirit coming there rather than a scientific temper in the mind of the child? Because the first question you ask today means not today because COVID has changed the questions we asked, but when a child comes back from school, the first question the parent asks, and the child will say, "What is competition?" आज टेस्ट हुआ या आज स्पोर्ट्स हुआ, हाँ क्या हुआ, कौन जीता, who won, what did you score, how did you perform? All
Who
these
came the first?
questions are about competition. People are not asking what did you learn. People are not asking आज क्या सीखा. Now reverse that. Take the child to the school. The teacher is now saying, did you get what I am trying to explain? No. When the boy next to you can understand, why can't you understand? When that person can solve the problem, why can't you solve? You're always lazy, you're always unfit. What is happening? Your comparison is bringing in competitive spirit. So the person, you remember that story where there are 11 friends who get lost in a jungle and finally they come together and they see a tiger in front. And then the fellow starts talking. He's like, oh, what do we do now? He says, I have to run. Oh, but I can't run faster than the tiger. But the fellow says, no, I don't have to run faster than the tiger. I have to run faster than you. Because the tiger is going to eat you. If I run faster than you, then I am saved.
Yeah.
So the point here is the competitive spirit is because of comparisons. So as adults, since you are asking me this question and I am answering you, we have realized that competition is temporary and collaboration is permanent, right? The same thing, you bring it into your classroom and your living rooms. Don't compare people. Celebrate individual differences. Enjoy your child or your student as they are. If everybody would have said Sachin Tendulkar is unfit because he did not clear his 10th standard, India would have not got a master blaster and a great player. If Ramakant Akrekar also compared like his maths teacher and said, what man, you can't bowl, you can't field, you can't run. No, but he said, you can play for hours together and I want you to focus on that. So the whole concept of comparison needs to change. Comparison should be there, but compare with yourself, not for others. Yesterday I took 10 hours to do this. Today, can I do it in less than that time?
So the last of my formal question for this is, we have you like you rightly mentioned that 20-minute session is optimal for the Zoom meetings right now, and I also believe that so I've also learning. So whenever the person is paying attention, he just receives the information, but the brain processes the information when it is not focusing. So when it is in diffused mode of thinking.
Yes.
So these mostly happen in breaks or when students are talking to each other. So these are equally necessary. This brings me to a part which is very important for a teacher to instill in a student is creativity. So do you have some tips on how to instill creativity and that curiousness in a student?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a very valid point and a very important concept of creativity, because today, the more the world is becoming volatile, uncertain, the only thing which will solve all control is creativity. You need to think out of the box. You need to think as if there is no box, right? So creativity is very important. And a few tips which I can tell you what I follow in creativity is try to have diversity. When I say diversity, you don't look at it in a silo. So if I'm studying mathematics, I will only study maths, and I won't focus on other things. No, you try to bring in another aspect, maybe watch a series or try to bring in some kind of design element and show maths there, or try to talk about a poem or a song and then try to look at it, because as you rightly said, brain processes when it is in the diffused state, right? The alpha waves and the beta waves. So it's very important. So the first thing is diversity. So encourage as diverse relationships, conversations, and ideations as possible when it comes to learning, right? Second, the second tip for creativity is encouragement. It may sound very silly, but you need to encourage, because by nature, by design, we are all creative people. If the first man not asked, how is this when two stones are scratched, there is spark coming out? That was the invention of fire. Okay, and from fire, livelihood began. Yeah, cooking food began, cooking meat began. So, by design, human beings are all creative people. The problem is we don't find encouragement around us as much as we want, and that's why creativity is snubbed. That is the problem. So that is the second thing. So first is diversity, second is encouragement, and the third and the most important thing is accept that every creative pursuit will not give you success. Be ready to fail.
Right.
Be ready to fail, because there are a lot of examples which I can say where creativity has boomeranged. It never worked. In fact, you can say 10 things which has worked because of creativity. I can show 1 lakh things which has not worked because of creativity. But the
Edison.
problem is, if not for that 1 lakh thing, these 10 things would not have got celebrated. Thomas Edison is a classic example. One way to invent the electric bulb, but 999 ways to fail it or to not do it.
Yeah.
Right? So accept that failure is part of a creative process. And when you know that I will fail, you are okay. You have to accept it. So these are the three things: diversity, encouragement, and failing is okay.
So thank you so much, Chandra. We threw lots of Yorkers and bouncers at you, and you hit fours and sixes to all of them. And as Ravi Shastri would say, Chandra finishes off in style. So for that, I have one final question, which I would love that you would hit a six for that.
I'm not Mahendra Singh
Is that-
Dhoni, so I'll try my best.
Is that you will have so many mentors in your life. So what is that one advice that you have received from your mentors that you carry throughout? And as a mentor that you have come to our channel, what is that one advice that you would like to pass on to our viewers? So one advice that your mentors gave you and one that you would like to pass on.
Okay, so I consider my dad to be my biggest mentor, because he's a living testimony of whatever I want to achieve in life, and he kind of inspires me, guides me, even when he's not with me. So his words, his face is always inside of me, so I cannot forget it. So the one advice which I received from him and has stuck to me all my life so far and will continue is: be simple, be a sample. So he always says that, you don't have to be sophisticated. You have to be simple, but you have to be so simple that you become a sample where people will say, look, he can do so much by just being simple. Right? So that's my biggest advice from my mentor, which I have received, and I'm happy about it, and I'm proud of it, and I'm cherishing it even today. My message to the youth, to be very frank, today youth don't need message. They have figured out what they want. The youth today have completely understood what is their strength and what are their weaknesses. So we don't want to bother them with that. But I would like to tell them this: believe in that particular thing which you have identified for yourself. Because the problem is, today the world is very distracting. So it's very natural. You go to a mall, you see a particular pair of shoes. Now, but you're confused. Should I buy this kind of a shoe, or should I buy a sport shoe, or should I buy a floater? So the problem is there is distraction. More options, problem of plenty. Today we are all facing that. So what I suggest is, when you have figured out what is in it for you and what is that which you want to do, believe in that. Believe in that and hold on to it as you will hold on to the last thing in this life. Then you don't need anybody's advice. You don't need anybody's message. You need inspiration and you need motivation. But I think there are plenty of WhatsApp videos and YouTube videos which will give you plenty of motivation and inspiration. So my suggestion and my message to the youth is: believe in whatever you are holding it, and hold it tight because you believe in it.
Thank you so much, Chandra, for being so gracious regarding your time. And
Thank you.
for those who are watching this video, I hope you learned a lot from this video. Do drop a like on this video, drop a subscribe if you really love this video, and definitely share with your friends and family so that they can also check out lots of such videos from our channel. Thank you so much, Chandra. We hope to see you on one more episode where we discuss more on edupreneurship and leadership, and we would definitely get to learn more from you.
Thank you so much, both Atharva and Vivaswan. I think you guys are doing an amazing job. You could have done 100 things, watching Netflix series or trying to chat with your friends and doing a lot of things, but you chose to spend this hour with me, and you also are trying to take this to your friends, your social circles. I think that itself shows that there is a spark, and I see that spark in both of you. So all the very best, and keep me updated about your progress in your life, because I'll be more happy to see you succeed and to see you win. Thank you and all the best.